Did you hit it?
It says we are now live. Yes, go
All
ahead.
right. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Clinician Conversations. Well,
Yeah.
as usual, let's introduce everybody in the room. I'm
Okay.
Benjamin, licensed professional counselor.
Mhm. I'm Jill Chastain, licensed professional counselor, certified in whole food plant-based nutrition.
I'm Laurel Huff, licensed professional counselor.
And Dr. Leatrice Brooks, licensed psychologist.
Well, hello everybody. Sorry we're getting started a little late today, but we are here. And today's topic is the discouragement. Um, and we came up with this title. I came up with the idea when we were actually having our table at the Griffin Place suicide prevention walk a couple weeks ago, and just talking about um, just being in a place where you feel you have no options, feel you've done everything. And when we talked a little bit about it and brought it to what do you do when think you've tried everything, when you're discouraged about making change and you just feel stuck and don't know where to go next, and was wondering from the other team members here at Chosen of what do you do when you think there's nowhere else to go or are out of options? How do you bridge that gap and move forward? So that's kind of where I wanted to go today. So chime in, folks, and we'll kind of discuss.
So based on what you said, one of the first things that came to my mind is a stat that I looked up a while ago, and I haven't looked it up recently, but I imagine it's probably about the same. So the stat basically says that on average, it takes people about 10 years of having dealt with an issue before they actually seek mental health services. And so these are folks with mental health issues. And so and what I mean by mental health issues, because I think sometimes we feel like we have to exhaust everything, because that's what I think is probably happening in that 10 years, that people are exhausting everything that they could ever think of, all of the people that they can think to talk to, all of the resources that they know of and have access to. And then they're like, okay, now I will go to therapy. And at that point, somebody probably is super discouraged because you've been trying for 10 years or
Yeah.
more to deal with something. And unfortunately, for a lot of folks, mental health is kind of like a last resort of like, okay, now that, I didn't beat myself up for this amount of time or whatever, I've been dragging myself trying to make it happen. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to therapy. And that's discouraging when you try and you try and you try and you try and you're pulling on all of the resources and you're not making the headway that you want to make. It's real easy to get to a place where it's like, I'm gonna tap out, or I don't want to do this, or tapping all the way out is not an option, but I'm just going to be miserable in life instead, and like stop moving towards something else just because we don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And then you usually feel like there's something wrong with you. I'll have people like so relieved because they've been holding it. Sometimes, like you said, 10 years or more, because they think, of course, there must be something wrong with me or I'm not doing it right. So it's not just the disappointment. It's, also those thoughts that we say and those messages that we say to ourselves, usually for years before we actually get help or we talk to somebody else about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know I've heard from folks, it's like, I should be smart enough to figure this out. I don't know why I can't get through it. And even with a lot of the couples I work with, even when they give me the first email, it's like, we're coming to you as a last ditch effort before we get divorced and things like that. So I'm very familiar with the counseling portion of people's treatment and working through things tends to be this last ditch effort of, now that I haven't been able to figure it out, now I'll try to go get some help. And I'm not sure how to untrain people to do that, because it would, especially in those situations, it'd be really nice if I was at the kind of the beginning, or at least shortly after the issue started, because then we've got more options, and all those bad habits aren't ingrained in these people and things of that nature. So
Because then
Wow.
it's difficult to detach them even more. That's what you're saying, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To an extent. So yeah, because I also think there's something about people being at the end of themselves
Mhm.
Yeah.
and showing up,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? You fight less, right? So it's like when they talk about somebody is drowning, you got to wait till they get weak enough for you to be able to help them. Otherwise, they're going to take you out too,
Yes.
kind of a thing. You know, like you can't come into therapy asking a provider to help you with a different approach, and then you don't want a different approach.
That part.
It
Yes.
usually has to be so painful. Yeah, which is
Mhm.
unfortunate, and yet that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my experience in working with people too, there's a level of shame in
Yeah.
them not wanting to, I should be able to figure this out. I should know this. And then there's just a level of shame. So they won't, and they'll wait till things get unbearable and then seek help.
Yeah.
Yes, I see you, Rachel. You have to know you need the help to accept the help. You can pop in on this Zoom if you're available. I know you were driving in. We will admit you. But when you talk about that shame piece and like people feeling like they should know, if somebody says that to me, I ask them why.
Mhm.
Why do you
right.
think that?
That's right.
Where
Mhm.
would you have gotten that information and that knowledge from, that experience, that where, or they might say, well, my friend, whatever. Okay, well, how did they get to know? They were not born with that knowledge. They got it from somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then those that have people around them that feel like they're the strong one.
Mm.
And so the shame comes from, I can't let them see me like this because they think I have everything together.
Yeah.
Look, knowing good and well, they faking too.
Right, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So I feel like, and this is something that I talk to people about sometimes, and unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways it's socially constructed for us. Like
Hmm.
you go through, you go through life, and at whatever point you are when you finish your education, you just assume you're supposed to know everything else, right? Unless you, right, unless you starting a new job, you like, oh, okay, well, I'm not gonna know all of this, but then once I'm there for a minute, I'm supposed to know everything. No, you're not, because things are changing all the time. Things are changing
Yes.
all the time. Like even within the work that we do, things are changing all the time. I was talking to licensed professional counselor a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about like the differences between how things were 10 years ago and where the field is currently going when it comes to counseling. And things change, but for whatever reason, it's like we gonna, push you off there into the world, and then now this idea of somebody is available to teach me something that I don't already know is like out of our minds, and then we become our own teachers. But how do you become your own teacher if you don't know everything?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You probably even at a point that you don't even know what you don't know or why you don't know it.
You
It'd
don't.
be like me looking at the inside of a car. I open the hood. I have no clue about what's going on. I hear beeps and whirs, and I wouldn't even know what tools to use to even open it up to fix it. So, I mean, why people think that they can look within inside themselves, and if they've never been taught how
Yeah.
to self-reflect or do anything like that, no, they're going to be
Part of the
stuck.
shame piece, yeah, because
Yeah.
to change it, it has to be exposed. It has to be shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the folks I've got, they feel they're stuck, but they've been blaming everybody else. They've been giving external sources all the power in their lives and the blame in their lives, and they haven't realized that maybe some of it's inside of themselves. And that's not a
Very
fun
true.
conversation usually to have, of saying, so what part do you think you have in being stuck in your life right now?
Because we're not taught to do that
Yeah,
That
yeah,
part.
unless you
right.
come to therapy.
exactly.
That's right.
But you're
That's
not really, taught to do that. Rachel says life means, so I'm referring to Rachel. Rachel is in the chat for those who don't know. She is one of our providers. She's en route right now, so unable to hop on. But she says life means change, in all caps change and growth. you need new tools and strategies to address the ever-changing version of yourself. Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because we
Yeah.
only really have control over what we do. Everything else is outside of our control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say more about that.
Well, I think that that can actually be empowering if you're in a state where you don't feel that much is happening. That is something that you can at least grab onto, you know, and look at it daily, weekly. There, you know, there's still things that I can do. It kind of it makes it more detached in a way, a healthy detachment where it's not hopefully as attached to someone's sense of self.
Mhm.
Yeah, and to me that connects with what Rachel said about change, like life means change. And so it brings up for me thinking about like plants, right? Jill got her forest in the background, but thinking about like plants and life and changing, and plants go through a process of changing and growing, and they lose parts of themselves and then they grow new parts, right? We
Mhm.
are living, to what Rachel's saying, life means change. We are living and we're going to do the same thing. There are parts of ourselves that used to be that aren't anymore, but for whatever reason, we get to this space where we feel like I should have arrived at my perfect self as of today. And if I find out that there's something I need to do differently, then I am now traumatized by that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
getting to this space of being saying, okay, yeah, and what do I need to do differently? Right?
Yep.
Here's the situation. It's not working well for me, or it's not working well for somebody else, and that's important to me. And so, what do I need to do differently? How do I grow and develop in this process? And it reminds me, like, one of the things that I do personally is when something happened. I'm a learner. Y'all know that. Y'all hear that from me all the time. I am a learner. So I am, after I, have my feelings, I try to real quick get to a point where I'm saying, what area am I supposed to grow in? Like, what is my growth edge? What can I take from this that then helps me moving forward so that I'm not just staying the same in it? Because that's when it feels like a loss. If you just get beat up and you just go home, like, no, you get a couple swings in, or you figure it out. You figure out a strategy of what to do differently next time, or you figure out how to get some benefit out of it. Then it feels like a loss. A
Yeah.
win for you if you get something out of it.
Yeah, I think there's also a level of courage in regards to change, and then being teachable, having that teachable spirit too. And, being open to learning new things. And one example I use, I'm back up a little bit. There's also the comparison, when people compare themselves to other people. This age, I should be this, I should have this at this age. And when they don't have that because of societal expectations, then it's easy to slip into, again, the shame and feeling defeated because they're not where they want to be. But one of the examples that I use in therapy, I talk about seasons a lot. And then there's different portions of our life where we go through seasons, and each season has its purpose. And I always use with the trees in the wintertime, they look dormant, but they are dormant, they look dead and look
Mm.
lifeless. But in the trunk of a tree, like in the wintertime, it's going through a whole germination. There's a lot going on in the inside of the trunk that you can't see, but it's what's happening in the inside. It allows them to sprout up in the spring. So, and that's kind of in our lives. We may not see things sprout up right away, but if you're doing the work and being consistent, then you'll see change. But you may
Yeah.
not see it all at once, and staying encouraged when you don't see the change all at once because of what other people have, and it feels like mine is not working.
Yeah.
I'm not at this point yet. So I use the word season. My clients are like, here she goes with
Here she
seasons again.
goes.
It's just true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and sometimes I work with folks and they're going after something, going after something, going after something,
Yes.
and they feel that they got stuck, and
Mhm.
it's actually something you shouldn't be pursuing in the first place. It's a goal that might be completely unrealistic, or a relationship that is just not gonna happen. And they've built it up like, I should have this, or I have to have this, and being stuck in that place is, life, or whatever, spiritual component saying no to them, and they're
Mhm.
not willing to receive that no, and step back and go, oh, maybe I should reevaluate what my goal is. Maybe I'm stuck for a reason,
Mhm.
and this isn't supposed to happen.
So,
Which is hard to accept.
and you know
Yes.
what, along those lines, I'm gonna say this out loud. A good therapist, I think, is gonna tell you the stuff you don't necessarily want to hear,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But they know that this is the thing that's gonna help you to get to where it is. I would rather have a client stop, which I've had before, to stop, not not a lot, maybe once or twice, because they did not like what I said to them.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
at least one of them, I had the opportunity to revisit it afterwards. I said, tell me what you heard me say. And they told me, I said, tell me what you thought that meant. And they told me. And then I said, oh, okay, yep, that's what I meant. And then
Yeah.
they actually said, they actually said, um, you probably right, but that's not what I wanted to hear.
Right.
My job is to help you.
Yeah. Because how many of us really have those conversations where we feel we're in a supportive environment and we're being told the truth?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're here because you want to be, or you're supposed to be here because you want to hear something different than what you've been telling yourself, because what you're telling yourself is not getting you the results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a healthy risk as a therapist and just be honest with you, because I've also had people who have didn't like it, and then years later they come back.
Yes.
Mhm.
You were right about that. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
5 years ago when I told you. But here's the good thing, right? For 5 years, it's been rolling around in your mind. You remember I told you.
Yeah.
Clearly, you felt safe enough because you're back.
Yeah.
So me telling you the thing wasn't because, oh, you're a bad therapist. And nope. You came back because you felt like it was safe. And also because it was the truth. And you now realize, like, oh, that was just to really benefit me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say what let me share it, Rachel. She said, she said a couple things. I'm trying to keep
Mhm.
up. So she gave another analogy. She said, you don't eat the same foods you did when you were a baby. You have to feed yourself different as you grow. And then she also says, yes, nobody knows everything. You are the author of your own book. We can't judge based off of social media. We'll
Yes.
find ourselves trying to live somebody else's life, which may not be meant for us.
For sure.
Growth can be uncomfortable and the truth may sting a little, but you'll be all right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Very
here's the
true.
thing, too. After we drop that truth on you, we still here.
Yeah.
We we gonna help you figure out how to navigate that. I remember I had a client once where there was something we were going. I'm not gonna say we were going at it, but we kind of were. We just had that relationship where I was just like telling her what it is, and she was not feeling it, and she was very clear on telling me she not feeling it. And then like a couple years later, she was like, "Yeah, I was talking to somebody, and I sound like you. I was telling them that this was a bad decision, and this, and this, and she telling them all the stuff that I had told her, because at that point she had started implementing the things we talked about, and
Yeah.
she was getting different results, and it worked, and she began to believe what I was saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's weird with mental health seems to be the one place where we don't want to accept help. If Michigan, if you're going down in winter, you slide off the road, you stick yourself in a snowdrift, and you're stuck there, you will accept help to get out, and people will shovel you up. There's no shame and such. You might feel a little embarrassed, but when it comes to what off the road mentally and emotionally, and we're stuck in that proverbial snowdrift. It's like, oh no, I should just be able to, I should be able to pull not only myself but the car I'm in out of that snowdrift under my own power and not accept any help. It's so strange that when it comes to us and our emotions, it's like, but in the physical world, we'll accept help most of the time for stuff.
So here, I got a vendor calling in that's on their way to the office. I gotta answer this. Y'all keep going. I had a question, but go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
He might be outside.
Yeah, that's so true, Benjamin, too, because a lot of times when people get into trouble, they've had help from other people getting in that situation. And then there's that shame, where they
Yeah.
feel shame to ask for help. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things. It's something I had to learn too. It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that was coming up for me, I think this is related to what you were just talking about, Jill,
Mhm.
too, but Benjamin, is because I think this also helps when it comes to this discouragement. Like, we've got to get out of the space of waiting until things become a crisis and we are completely beat down before we reach out for help.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Right? You cannot be to the end of
For
yourself.
sure.
And then sometimes you are too tired to even take on anything, to ask people for support. Like, for example, I know when people are in therapy, I'm not a huge advocate. Well, I'm not gonna say advocate. Medication is not my go-to for people. But there is a point where you are so low, we can't even get started.
Yeah.
We gotta have medication to start this process.
That's right.
And so I want to talk about that for a minute. How do we get to a place where we start doing some things before we get to complete discouragement, and then we feel like we can't pick up the pieces? But we got some folks online. We've got Andy on the line. He says, if my therapist isn't making me a little comfortable or challenging, is making me a little uncomfortable, I think is what he meant, or challenging my BS, then it's just another person and not a therapist to me. Absolutely.
So true.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then we've got Wendy. This is your Wendy, Benjamin.
Really? Hello.
I'm looking at that last name. She says, we've come a long way, but needing help with mental health is still perceived as a weakness. It is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I think we are. I agree. I think we're making some progress, though.
I think so too.
But how do we, what would you say is, here's the point where you should probably consider therapy? Like, if you could get something, like, what's a sweet spot for therapy? I know something that I tell people all the time, but what do you guys think? Rachel says, she responded to Wendy, it is Wendy, that's why we have to put in the work to reframe society, that it's not bad to seek help, which is actually why we do these clinician conversations, try to normalize it, and also give people an opportunity to see what kind of stuff therapists talk about and get to see us as people. And then Rachel also says, we don't think it's bad when people go to the doctor.
No.
I was thinking that too. It needs to be a check-in almost. Yeah.
Yes.
Where am I at, and assessing the different areas, and oh, this is interesting, I'm really struggling, and now let's see if I can look into it and talk to somebody.
Yeah. For me, and I have clients do this too, I pay attention to what my body is doing when I'm kind of feeling out of alignment, maybe not sleeping or nervous, just paying attention to how my body is responding. That's an indicator for me, because I feel like our body lets us know first what's going on, those little signs, and it's paying attention to that.
Yeah. Well, not ignoring. My thing was, I went back into counseling because actually Dr. Brooks I was talking to Dr. Brooks about something, and she was like, yeah, you should probably go and check out a counselor again for that. And it's like, and being open to that, to somebody saying, I see where you are and what you're doing and the patterns that you got in your life, whether it's an employer, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a friend, but being open to that, not taking offense at that and going, well, okay. And then you got to do a little bit of a trip, because you may not find that counselor and jive with that first counselor that you select.
Mhm.
So you might have to try a few people to get that relationship going. But yeah, listen to people in your life too. And hopefully you've got some good trusted people that can kind of hold you accountable too. So
I got a couple thoughts. One is, I just forgot the first one because I didn't write it down. I'll say the second one. One of the things that I say to people when it comes to like figuring out if you should go to therapy is mental health check. That was the other thing. I'm writing it down. Okay, so one of the things that I say to people is if you have a situation in your life and you want it to be different, go to a therapist. Right?
Mhm.
Maybe you have tried a couple things. You don't have to exhaust everything before you go to therapy.
right.
Right?
Mhm.
Let's go. Let's just figure it out. I need this to be different from myself. I'm gonna reach out to somebody for help. All
Mhm.
right. The other thing is, Laurel, you had mentioned talking about like going to the doctor for a checkup and us going, just to get checked in. And one of the things I tell people sometimes, because I had people, they're like, well, so and so says I should go to therapy, but I don't know if I should go. And I tell them, I said, look, the therapist is trained to see whether or not you need therapy.
Right.
If you don't need it, they'll tell you.
Right.
Right.
One of the things that, and if they do think you need it, then they'll tell you that as well. Here's some areas that I see. But when we think about kids coming to therapy, a lot of times it's because their parents said you need to go to therapy. So when I work with kids, or even if you have somebody that's in a relationship and they say, well, so and so made me come. Okay, well, what did they think was wrong?
Right.
Tell me what
Exactly.
they were seeing that made them say you need to go, even if you feel like you don't necessarily need to be there. As a therapist, I will find those growth edges and see if you're on board with that, and then we'll move along, right? So
Yeah.
regardless of how you got in the door, you're here now. Let's see if we can do something with that.
Right.
And we've got a couple more. So we got Andy, 100% agree. Too many people expect to immediately gel with the first therapist they ever speak with. Try a few in different styles.
Yes.
Yes. A lot of thank you for saying that. I know Benjamin did as well. There are a lot of people who don't know that.
Right.
If it's not a good fit, that's okay. And in that, examine why it's not a good fit. Is it
Mhm.
not a good fit because I'm tripping?
Yeah.
Or is it not a good fit because I just don't like this therapist, right? Like,
Yep.
what are my expectations? And then Wendy says, perceived barriers for people. She talked to our time, money, lack of insurance coverage. I'm in survival mode. I can't add one more thing to do, lack of ability to take off work, childcare, etc. So,
Mhm.
thoughts on any of that? How would you respond to that if somebody is time in coverage or finances, survival mode, can't add one more thing?
Mhm.
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of options now for therapy. There's in person and there's online. There's even places like BetterHelp or something like that. They will do even texting, like back and forth, emailing and doing therapy and those kinds of modalities and things like that. That could probably take you a lot less time and have a relatively more affordable cost. But yeah,
Well, I don't,
definitely. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say I don't know about that. I don't know if you can bill insurance for texting. I don't think you can and all of
No,
that.
I
But
know with some of those you actually, I think, pay a fee to be in the program.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
The
so you're right.
subscription.
They're not using insurance for
But
something
I'll
like
say
that.
for us though,
For us,
telehealth is
no.
an option. And
Yeah.
just to talk about telehealth,
Right.
we have people who will see us in the parking lot at work in their car. We just have to document where you are physically. So if we need to dispatch somebody to you, if something go down,
Yeah.
then we can do that. But they do it in the parking lot at work.
Yep.
I had someone, she was at another appointment, and at that office, the appointment was right after hours. At that office, they gave her a private room because they saw her in the hallway. They were like, oh, here, we'll put you in this room and you could do your appointment in there.
Yeah.
People who do it in the car, in their driveway, because
I
they
have
want
people get ready
privacy.
for work and they'll turn the camera off sometimes and I'll kind of
Right.
follow them around the house.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
telehealth is definitely something that adds to that. And then when it comes to insurance, I think all insurances are required to offer mental health services in some capacity, including Medicaids are required. And
Yeah.
then, so we'll add Rachel's comment, therapy can help teach you skills to better manage your life and not feel like you can't handle anything else. Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So
Very
it's
true.
I'm giving up this 1 hour to gain 5 back.
that's right. Yeah.
That is
Mhm.
And it's
true.
thinking about that, right? So like therapy, sometimes it's like, okay, we're gonna work on some organizational skills. We're
Mhm.
gonna work on your time management skills. We're gonna work on delegation because you're doing too much and somebody else be doing some of the stuff that you're doing. That you're
Right.
taking on too much. Maybe we need to work on boundaries. And
Right.
so our job is to figure out what is the thing or the things that have you in that space. So
Yeah.
then we can get out of this place where you're drowning, but
Mhm.
you gotta squeeze it out.
Mhm.
Because it can give
Yeah.
you energy. I mean, yes, going to therapy can also be exhausting, but getting all that stuff out could also give you more energy for the week.
That's right.
Because you
That's
feel
right.
heard and understood, you had an opportunity to say something to somebody that other people maybe couldn't hear or couldn't hold.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
She
Mhm.
says, Rachel says, if you feel like you're in survival mode as a therapist, that's a clear indicator to me you've been needing to start services. Andy says, right, let's see where you are spending your time, and I'm sure we can find something that's not productive and switch it out for therapy or services.
That's right.
Right.
Making
Yeah.
it a priority. Because when
Absolutely.
we're better for ourselves, then we're better for the people that are in our lives.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
So
So true.
making you a priority.
That's
Yep.
right.
Yeah, it's how I'm functioning a priority. Because here's the thing: the alternative is I cannot continue at the level that I am.
Right.
Like
Mhm.
I remember, so I was in a car accident. What was that? 11 years ago, and I had a concussion, and so they had taken me off work for a week to recover from that, and then I had to go back to the doctor to get a release to go back to work. And so she said, are you ready? Do you feel like you're ready to go? We had talked about symptoms. Do you feel like you're ready to go back? I said yes, and she said no. She's like, I'm not going to release you back to full time. And she said this, like, your brain is not ready yet, and I can release you now, but you're still going to have to take the time off. It's just going to be later, and we're not going to go that route. But you
Right.
still have to take it because your brain needs it. And I almost wanted to cry because I appreciated that. I'm like, in that moment, I was thinking about these things the responsibilities that I had. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I only got one brain.
Yeah.
That's right.
To recover. If that's a wrap, like we're done. Like there's no getting another one. There's no replacement brain. Like this is you got replacement knee, replacement. There's none of that for a brain. And so I appreciated her telling me the thing that I was not saying to myself.
Yeah.
And that I was willing to follow through with her recommendations because she had my best interests at heart, even though I didn't. I thought I was thinking about the things I needed to, but I clearly wasn't. And so that's what it's also like being in therapy is
Yeah.
that I got to do the thing that I need to in order to take care of myself, because the realities of long-term ramifications for not getting help are real.
Yeah.
And
You
they
know?
impact other people
Yeah.
Mhm.
in our
And even like
lives.
the physical health issues that we have, guess what? Related to mental health. That's why we're so exhausted because,
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
yeah.
Well, do you
Okay.
want to wrap us up for our episode today?
Yeah, I'm gonna read these last couple of comments that we got. So Wendy says, I agree, Rachel. I think we find ourselves there without realizing how we got there. Kind of like the frog in the pot who doesn't notice the water gradually warming to boiling.
That's good.
And I think therapists are also good at helping you to learn to recognize that.
Mhm.
when things are ramping up. And then Rachel responded to Wendy and said, absolutely. And at that point, we should transition our thinking to how can I help myself?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. So you want me to wrap up? I can do that. So Andy says, randomly found this. Glad I stopped in. Thanks,
Yes,
Andy,
thank
for
you,
stopping
Andy.
you.
in.
Yes,
Go ahead and be sure to like our page so you'll know when we do it again. We do it every other month. Every other month. So thanks for joining.
yes.
Final thoughts. The discouragement. What to do when you have tried everything. There are still options. You may have tried everything that you know how to do, but there is somebody who knows how to do something else.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so if that means coming into a therapist to have a conversation, to explore some things, to try to figure things out, to try to wrangle some things so that you can handle it better or get connected better, do that, because I think we do have options for what our life will look like. And it's a matter of, are we connected to the right people, the right resources, have the right skills to be able to accomplish the things that we ultimately want to accomplish. And so it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
As therapists, we have worked with some folks who have been in some dark and dusty and devastating places. And it is amazing to see the turnaround that people can have when they receive help and they follow through with recommendations on a consistent basis. So take a healthy risk in your trying to try therapy, to find a therapist that is a good fit for you, so that you can get some change.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
you're worth it. You're worth it.
yeah. All right. So till next time, this is discouragement.
Discouragement.
All
Have a
right.
good one, everybody. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining us.
Thank you for
Take care.
joining. Uh-huh.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.